the Rogie Report news on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie. Was Earth originally a water world? Geologists have studied the 3.2 billion-year-old crust in Australia and have utilized the rock data to build a model of ancient seawater. The model indicates that the early Earth could have been a water world with submerged continents. Geologists Benjamin Johnson and Boswell Wing wrote in a paper published online by the journal Nature Geoscience. And they wrote, an early Earth without emergent continents may have resembled a water world, providing an important environmental constraint to the origin and evolution of life on Earth, as well as a possibility of existence elsewhere. Johnson and Wing suggested two possible ways. Water cycling through the ancient ocean crust was different than today's seawater, with a lot more high-temperature interactions, which could have enriched the ocean with heavy isotopes of oxygen. Or water cycling from the continental rock could have reduced the percentage of heavy isotopes in the water. A new study from the University of California, Berkeley, examines YouTube's efforts to limit the spread of conspiracy theories on its site. In January of 2019, YouTube said it would limit the spread of videos that could misinform users in harmful ways. Recently, YouTube has updated their algorithms so that videos with conspiracy-related topics are recommended less. The researchers found that YouTube has nearly eradicated some conspiracy theories from its recommendation, including theories such as flat Earth and 9/11. In June of last year, YouTube said the amount of time people spent watching such videos from its recommendations had dropped by 50%. The researchers argue these findings suggest that YouTube has decided which types of misinformation it would allow and which types it would not allow. Hani Farid, a computer science professor at the University of California, Berkeley, and co-author of the study, said, "It's a technical problem, but really, at the end of the day, it's also a policy problem." Flat Earth enthusiast Nathan Thompson has been a prominent advocate for the conspiracy theory. He broadcasted live on YouTube as he walked up to a fence at a school in Greenville, South Carolina, and began shouting at children about Flat Earth. In this clip, you can hear him speak to the students.
Hey guys, check this out real quick. Space is fake. You're not on a spinning ball.
School officials reported the incident to the police, and Thompson was later arrested for public disorderly conduct. Thompson said he used his First Amendment rights to tell those kids that large bodies of water do not curve. This is the Rogie Report news on the Fringe FM. I'm Jess Rogie.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS speed risk.
The first message that comes to me is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. This is Lighting the Void, and I am your host, Joe Roop. Welcome back once again. We are live on the Fringe FM. It is Thursday night, March the 5th on into the 6th. And tonight, author and investigator James Keenan is with us tonight. And we're going to be talking about pretty much everything that he's been involved with when it comes to his books, also his investigations, from things like Skinwalker Ranch to UFOs to, ancient history. This guy's investigated just about everything. He's wrote a ton of books, and it's going to be a very interesting conversation. That's coming up shortly. Also, I want to thank Alex Kazemi for coming on last night, and all of the archives, including that show, are caught up. So you want to go listen to that. He stayed here with us for 2.5 hours, and we got deep into the subject of magic. So as always, the archives are free and even on SoundCloud now. So just about every podcast player known to man, you can catch the show for free. I want to thank our sponsors, ancientlifeoil.com, getthetea.com, and Metaphorical Archaeology. Give Barbara a call if you've had any paranormal trauma and it's caused you to have post-traumatic stress or stuff you can't get over. You can get a free session from Barbara at 214-995-3754. Tomorrow night on the program, too, Jeff Harmon's going to be back with us. It's been a minute since we've had him on here, but with all of the stuff going on here lately, I'd like to get his reports as well. I'd like to get both his and Mary's reports with everything that's been going on lately with, stuff like the elections, the coronavirus, and then usually after we get through talking about that, we get into some deep esoteric knowledge with Jeff. It's always a good show when he comes on. I want to mention, too, that we're going to be at the Ozark UFO Conference in April the 10th through the 12th. That starts on a Friday, I believe, and we'll be down in the vendors area down there. So if you're coming to that event, there's going to be a lot of speakers there. Whitley Strieber, David Pilatus, I think George Norrie is going to be there. There's going to be all kinds of people there. So come hang out with us. And if you want to keep a journalistic approach to UFOs, you can follow UFO Seekers, our partners, doing their thing out investigating in the field, in the desert most of the time, at UFO Seekers on Twitter. And go check out their YouTube channel at youtube.com/UFO Seekers. Now, James Keenan is an author, a lecturer, and field investigator, and he's written 5 fictional novels that have science fiction, supernatural, or paranormal components to them. He began his writing career after more than 25 years in law enforcement and in private investigations. His most recent book, The UFO and an Alien, is an attempt to bring younger generations into ufology by introducing them to main ideas and components of the subject matter, all while telling an excellent story that is directed toward elementary school children. That's pretty cool. And James has a degree in Interdisciplinary Studies from the University of California in Santa Barbara, and his main curriculum was anthropology and archaeology with a focus on Mesoamerican cultures. The majority of his field work while at school were in areas where the Maya culture flourished, and during the last 10 years, James noticed that he considered a lack of archaeological investigation into the reason past cultures suddenly disappeared, and I agree with that totally. Now, because of this, he began to investigate the issue himself, and in the course of doing so, he noticed that evidence existed within many cultures that pointed towards the same catastrophic events taking place at a worldwide level. You can also grab his book too at amazon.com/author/James Keenan. And you also kind of, James, thanks for coming on the show, by the way, man. This is going to be cool. I really appreciate you coming on.
Hey, Joe, good evening. Thanks for having me on.
So you travel all over the place and investigate to this day, right? You still do this stuff? You travel and just investigate pretty much everything and all things when it comes to ancient history, paranormal, even ufology, right?
Correct, I do.
Man, I heard about this story, so I was doing some investigations myself about you, and I understand that as a young child, you had a near-death experience. Is that correct?
Yeah, I drowned right before the age of 2, and took them about 10 minutes to resuscitate me. And I had an NDE, which included a little bit of the afterlife,
right.
And that, I believe, was just a huge part in my life as to, opening my eyes and kind of always being open to not just, the scientific aspect of the things around us, but, also being willing to look at other things that, we label as paranormal currently.
And you believe that all of this stuff, we call it like ufology, ancient history, spirituality, the esoteric, forbidden archaeology, you do see a link between all this stuff. You're starting to see where it all kind of comes together, according to your research, right?
Sure. Well, bits and pieces of it fit together. Not all of it, but portions of it do all come together. And, when you look through history, there's some pretty large puzzle pieces that fit together. And in the last, I'd say about 25 years, there just seems to be this tidal wave of information becoming available and new discoveries, not just based on completely scientific research, but, like you said, based on other possibilities, other things, metaphysical things of that nature as well. It all comes together.
So what got you doing? So I'm curious, and what got you writing science fiction? Do you believe that you could get more, to get the message across better that way, like writing fiction? Because I'm curious, there's a lot of authors that do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I actually love fiction, but I think, I wonder actually sometimes if that's why authors do that, because they feel like they have more freedom to tell what they actually believe, what's going on inside these stories.
There were a couple reasons for going, the fictional route. Originally, when I started writing, I was still working as an investigator in the insurance industry as a special investigator. So if I had written nonfiction about, things I've investigated or things that had happened to me, I wouldn't have had a job the next day. So I kind of disguised, personal experience, information that I had come across, and a belief systems, into certain things like past cultures and civilizations that I believe are more truth than what we're told. So that was originally kind of why I went the fictional route. And yeah, like you said, fiction gives you an opportunity to go places that you couldn't as a nonfiction writer. However, my next book, I'm working on my very first nonfictional book, which hopefully will be coming out. I was hoping for September, but it probably won't be until October or November of this year.
Well, that's cool, because I haven't read any of your books, to be honest with you, but I'm looking at them, and now I got to that's the thing when I do shows like 5 nights a week, and every person I meet, it's like, I have no idea how I'm going to read all these books, but I know I want to. And Kindle actually really helps me, because, you can just download it and just start reading. But it's always cool to have the physical book too, Now,
no, absolutely.
Do you think do you think the thing that happened to you when you were young kind of triggered this whole life event? Like it was a catalyst for you to get involved with this stuff, maybe?
I'm pretty sure that's how I see it. I always tell people that when you think back, what's the earliest that you remember or start remembering that you can bring all your recollection in as an adult? For me, the moment I drown, I absolutely remember everything as if I were an adult. So it was just an interesting experience, just having the ability or the capability of being able to, recollect everything that's happened to me, and the experience itself opened me up to understand that there's far more out there than what we're led to believe, told or that most of us come in contact with.
Yeah, I do think about that from time to time too. Honestly, like just how strange is it getting out there? You know, there's a lot of skeptics that talk a lot of the skeptical stuff. I mean, I bring up Joe Rogan quite a bit on the show because he's the one influencing people. And anytime people start talking about these types of things, that, you know, you can tell he's biased and he doesn't want other people to talk about it. He doesn't want people to think it might be real. But it's kind of like, how do we know what's real and what's not real? Because we're only basing things on our experience and what other people have told us. But if a lot of people keep telling us stories, and I'm asking you this because you were a police officer, you worked in investigations and stuff. I mean, that kind of matters, right? When enough people start telling you the same kind of stories, you see the same patterns, there's obviously something to it. It doesn't ever lead into lies or untruth, does it?
You know, it can go back both ways, but I mean, when you're doing criminal investigations, there's a lot that you see that the public doesn't see or understand. And you know, in recent time, there are a lot of television shows that try to depict it properly, but there's just so much that you don't get unless you really live it and you go through the process. And it's tedious. It's not an hour long, you know. Yeah. Most people see it as, it takes an hour. You know, that's the time of the show. But, I mean, there's times when, you know, I'd be investigating something and I totally missed it. And weeks later, you just suddenly have this epiphany like, you know, holy crap. And it's a huge clue or a huge event that just brings the whole process together. And, you know, like to what you originally said, you know, look at science. You know, what we consider science and fact today, in 100 years, they may laugh at us and
right.
think we were crazy for having believed that. So really, what's the difference when you label something? And I like to label it. I always think there's a difference between paranormal and supernatural. Paranormal is just something we don't understand currently. And can it become science tomorrow? Absolutely. So for people that are biased and aren't willing to be open to something like that, how can they even call themselves a detective or a scientist? Because aren't we supposed to learn and investigate and attempt to see and experience things that we have yet to experience and yet to understand, and hopefully turn those into what everybody would eventually consider as factual? Yeah,
right. It reminds me of what you're saying is like the Travis Walton case, you know, where I've read the book Fire in the Sky, and I met Travis, talked to him, and you can tell something real happened to him. It's so different when you talk to this guy, and it's like everybody in that town, including the police department, there was I think the local police guys, you know, believed him because these guys, they had integrity, especially the boss. He kept his word a lot. But what I'm saying is the story is so wild that even because all of the guys were saying that it really happened and all their stories lined up and they passed all these lie detector tests, there was just something that we just couldn't accept. And even to this day, there's still people that try to debunk that or say that it was something else, you know. And I wonder why. I wonder why we have such a hard time realizing that we don't know everything that's out there in the universe. So we can't just accept that there are things in reality that are wild and beyond all recognition. You know, we have a hard time with it.
Absolutely. And, you know, at just the lowest level, just think of what we experience currently as humans. In regards to light spectrum, we don't see that much. We miss a ton of the light spectrum. And our hearing, we don't hear anything compared to what's out there. So when you think of, you know, being open to things that haven't happened to you, just because it hasn't happened to you doesn't mean it hasn't happened to other individuals. And a good investigator and a good researcher will try to look at both sides of a story, try to gather the facts and the evidence. And of course, you know, they can say they're not biased, but everybody's biased as to, you know, it being a pro or con. And, you know, I have my beliefs, so absolutely it biases me. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I get it, you know, a lot of things are subjective. Especially even like look into anthropology and archaeology. It's a social science. It's not factual, and a lot of it's subjective, and I get it. Other people can see it differently. But the possibilities of my interpretation are just as good as an archaeologist or an anthropologist. I'm still basing upon, you know, the same evidence and the same things that they've seen, I've seen. So, you know, that can be crossed over into ufology, into the paranormal, into the metaphysical, pretty much anywhere. You just have to be willing to accept that there's a lot that we don't know yet.
For sure. And I can't help but be curious about how your life was as a police officer when you were having, you talk about this recurring dream in the book 10/22/2036. A dream that you keep having about an earth that's changing, right? Or portals and stuff. Or, you know, I want to talk about this dream actually, but you, before we talk about the dream itself, you couldn't really talk about this to anybody, right? Or you just didn't want to, or how did that work out for you? Because I can imagine being a cop and, you know, like wanting to talk about these things with your fellow officers or your buddies and knowing that they're going to give you a psych exam or something afterwards. You know what I mean?
Well, too, and in the book, not everything is factual. I always tell people that, you know, I am a fictional author. So what I did was I took personal experiences and I absolutely added to it. So
Sure.
When I talk about dark shadows and catastrophe, I let everybody know up front that probably about 40% of what's in it really did take place, but then a good chunk of it is fictional. So you would have to ask me step by step what was real or what wasn't. And that's just because, you know, if I'm entering now into the nonfiction and, you know, the more we talk about the true investigation and research I do, I want to make sure that people are fully aware of what did or did not happen, because I absolutely published those as fictional books. And, you know, I wanted to advance it and tell a great story on top of, you know, the portions that are based upon, you know, true events.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I don't want to misrepresent it either. It's just, it's obvious that you did have but you did have like a recurring dream about something, right? Or am I wrong about that? Something kind of like this.
Yeah, something kind of like that.
Yeah. So what do you think is going on there?
Portion.
Because recurring dreams are important. And in my point of view, because I'm a big fan of Carl Jung and stuff, I think recurring dreams are super important, man.
In regards to 10/22/2036, all the time when I look at the way they put the Mayan calendars, and they tried to place it to the calendars that we use in Western cultures, and it doesn't seem like it's completely accurate to me. I think we're slightly off.
Yeah.
And I say that because there's certain things that we have taken and now considered to be correctly translated in Maya, in the Mayan glyphs, that I don't think are completely correct, just based upon the fact that a lot of it came from current Maya people. And what I think they represented a long time ago may have gotten lost in translation or changed. So I think our dates are slightly off. And I believe that there's been a cataclysmic event that has taken place in a cyclical cycle. The Maya and other cultures tracked this. As a matter of fact, the Maya were constantly, everything that they did seems to be built upon tracking the planet Venus.
Okay.
And so 10/22/2036, I've had this reoccurring dream of a cataclysmic event, and that's kind of what led me, to further studying, the past cultures and their oral tradition, their oral histories, and the written history that we have available to us. So that time period, it represents that cyclical cycle coming again in the year 2036. There's also a possibility that it could have been 2236. So it could be in a few years, or it could be in 200 years.
Man. Yeah, that is, I kind of think that too, as far as what you're talking about how we're slightly off, because I study things like astrology and stuff, and they got all these different systems, and everything's close, but it's kind of slightly off. It even feels slightly off when it comes to the predictions and the energies and stuff. It's like, man, they're close. It's almost like they're close. They're getting better, actually. As modern times go on, they keep adding stuff to it and changing it. But, like the 2012 thing, do you think that was actually a real event? Something happened there, or is that one of those times where we were slightly off?
Yeah, I think it's one of those times we're slightly off. And I still think that the end of, a fourth and entry into a fifth world, into indigenous people's beliefs, I believe that that's going to be an actual physical catastrophic event, not this enlightenment or this shift of spiritualism.
Interesting.
And like you said, and like I said, I feel that we've lost in translation that attempt to put their calendar system or their time of tracking to ours. And then in regards to like the astrology that you were talking about, I have this huge belief that was created to let future generations know about things that took place. There's obviously other things to it, that'll allow people to look into, their birth, and it kind of shows, who they are or how they act. But I think that a huge part of that was to track what has taken place, many millennia ago, and that had happened over and over. And it was a way of being able to let future generations know, hey, you need to track this because this is exactly what took place and when and where.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, is it really? We're going to talk about that a little bit more and get into your investigations after the break. But yeah, that is a good question. Is it really like consciousness or this ascension thing that everybody talks about is going to happen? Or like James and other people like Randall Carlson have said, is it a cycle of catastrophic events? Be right back. We're going to continue this discussion with our guest, James Keenan. Stay with us.
Barbara Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me, barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe the results.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
All right, man, this is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Right, me old Chinas. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me bubble. If, like me, you found your way to Light in the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology, and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon, and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
From a cave in the depths of your mind, it's Light in the Void with Joe Root.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you're interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. I want to give a big shout out to our executive producer of this show, Pacho, Patrick Newland. Happy birthday, brother. I hope it was a good one. And if you guys see Pacho, you send him a message, give him a happy birthday, send him a gift, a kiss, anything. He's a great dude, and he really, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have all the really cool guests, and we probably wouldn't be able to do the show 5 nights a week anymore. So thank you, brother, and happy birthday. Tonight our guest is James Keenan, author and investigator, and we were talking before the break about the prophecy, the 2012 thing, and you're right. I remember I was selling cars, James, and everyone was talking about, what's this thing about? Is it a planetary alignment? Is that what happened? And then, you start watching people like, I don't know, David Wilcock and other people, they say, well, it's this big ascension movement, right? Like that's what it's about. It's about a consciousness upgrade. But what does the evidence show? Is there any evidence that shows that that's what it was really about? Or is there more evidence showing that it's really about a catastrophic event or a cycle, like you say?
It goes both ways. If you speak to the indigenous people, that are currently here, they're going to tell you half are going to say, it's about this rise and ascension and more of a mystical upgrade. And then you talk to another group of indigenous peoples, and they're going to tell you that, entry into the next world requires a cataclysmic event to take place, and that a great amount of the population of all species will be wiped out before that can happen.
Does it have, okay, so let's start with this then. You mentioned that they referenced Venus a lot. What did you find about that? What kind of evidence did you find about that?
So you have in Venus, in the Mesoamerican historical data, specifically with the Maya culture, you have their codices, their calendar systems. So much of what they did based upon tracking Venus. And when you look at the codices, a lot of people interpret it, and the anthropologists and archaeologists will say that what you're looking at isn't representative of what's really happening, that it has other meaning. But when you look at it, it looks like Venus is assaulting planet Earth and pushing her spear into Mother Earth, and man is having to be pushed underground. And, think about it in regards to these hieroglyphs. Let's consider it like a petroglyph that we see in rock art. If an individual 1,000 years ago saw a bighorn sheep, what did they carve into the rock? Bighorn sheep. You can see it. You know what he was looking at. So why all of a sudden, if you see it having been written down into stone or some other, material, why is it all of a sudden it's not believable that it couldn't have physically taken place and that it was based upon hallucinogenic drugs or based upon it being a mythical story? Why can't it be what we see as what we get? And
yeah, right. Everything else is. So why? Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and then you have the Roman old Rome philosopher Varro from thousands of years ago that said, Venus was a different color in a different position and doing things differently than what was done today. And scientists, they're not saying that Varro was incorrect. They're just saying they don't understand or know how, Venus looked differently. It was on a different path. So we have from multiple different civilizations and cultures this watching and documenting Venus, and it tends to lead and show that something cataclysmic took place between the two planets. And what that exactly was, I'm unsure of, but the historical data looks to show it was actual cataclysmic events that took place more than once.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because isn't that the planet that traces out, like geometrically, it kind of traces like a pentagram when it has in its cosmological movements, and it's close to. And a lot of people, this probably as well as I do, a lot of people mistake Venus for a UFO. You ever notice a lot of people do that? They'll see that bright star in the bright. Yeah, it's got to be a UFO. Look how bright it is. And then it's just
and remember,
really close.
Venus. Yeah, and Venus moves completely different than the other planets. It has weird rotation. It's just truly bizarre how it even moves and how it's capable of that. And think about this: Venus is the hottest planet, and it's further from the sun than Mercury is. Yet there's a lot of weird scientific things happening on the surface and above it that we really don't understand even today.
It is pretty strange, man. I've got to look into that too, because I don't even think about that. And when you go out and investigate other areas, I noticed that you've been to not just not investigating Mexico or Mesoamerica, but also Scotland. There's a lot of crazy stuff there too, right? I mean, as far as history goes, if you look at the Druid stuff, the esoteric stuff, I think there was a big history there. Some people say that it was even Lemuria or whatever, but I don't know about all that. I've heard people say, I don't even know if that story's true. Have you ever heard people talk about Lemuria and Lemurians and stuff?
I've heard it, but I haven't really looked into it a whole lot.
Because I'm not saying it's not true. I don't want anybody to start bashing me or anything. It's like the whole Atlantis, Lemuria thing. There's a really big story about that, but there's not a whole lot of evidence for it. I mean, there's evidence for Atlantis a little bit, but the Lemurian thing, I can never find anything on it. So do you get more truth about actually going out to the areas and investigating this stuff than you do, researching and reading?
Absolutely. Being able to go to the cairns that are in Ireland and Scotland, there's a lot there that doesn't get put into books or get put into papers. There's no photos available. And what really irritates me is a lot of people will base their theories, or they'll try to make you believe what they believe by only showing little bits and pieces of rock art or little bits and pieces of the site. And they're not showing you the big picture. And, what could happen is it could be detrimental to their theory, and they just want to keep that out. Or it can prove even more. If you show the full picture of what's there, people can suddenly see, oh gosh, this hieroglyph or this petroglyph, wow, look at how it plays out with the rest of the rock art to the left of it and to the location, where it's positioned for above, astronomically, or what's below ground. So when I go out to these locations, like we were just in northern Scotland at the end of last year, and we went to the Clava Cairns, and you can go all the way up to the Orkney Islands, where more and more evidence is coming out that this may have actually been a lot older and than places like Egypt and what we consider like the cradle of life, Mesopotamia, the Sumerians. It may have actually been more happening further north than what we currently believe took place.
What's weird about what you're saying too is, did you notice how I don't know, it was last year, I forget what month it was, but they were talking about how, how they tell you how the poles shift, right? But then this was something a lot of people just read and kind of ignored because they're like, oh, that's natural. And I'm like, but the scientists, they're not saying that it's natural. The poles are shifting faster than they ever shift. I forget how many miles it went, but it actually shifted, and they had to regrid everything. And they're like, it's moved faster and more than it's ever moved. And it does make you wonder about ancient times, like where was the actual, magnetic North Pole, and how far north did things go? Because there's all kinds of evidence on the ground. Like I've listened to Randall Carlson about this stuff too, but I'm not very educated in it when it comes to geology. But as far as symbols and glyphs and stuff go, I think that's where I'm most interested in. Is that a lot of the stuff that you research too? Absolutely. And I'm those that know me,
they often, I'm sure they want me to shut up about talking about electromagnetic anomalies and the pole shifts and things of that nature, because, I mean, you know, magnetic north was in Canada, and now you got to go to Russia. I mean, that's how far, you know, to get to it. You got to go to Russia now. And think about, you know, the fact that while we're having this magnetic pole shift, the indigenous people up there, the Native Americans, they've been for the last 10 years telling us that the winds are blowing in the wrong direction. The sun is staying up longer, a half hour, an hour longer than it's supposed to. Animals, migrations have shifted. They're not being able to get to where they need to be. And this is being kept quiet. And for what reason, I don't know. More than likely, it's, you know, to keep people from panicking. Because, I mean, look at what the coronavirus is doing to, you know, to society currently. It has everybody in a huge panic. So imagine something that affects us all that you have no control of. What would that do to, you know, our current society and culture?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you talk about that too, along with if you want to go back to the Venus thing real quick, because there was this thing in the Smithsonian, I believe, where they were showing like land masses on Venus and then kind of aligning it with Earth and saying there's a lot of these masses that we're seeing that kind of look like it almost had life on it at one time or something. And it does make you wonder if there is a cycle of planets and stuff like that. And I know I sound kind of slow about this, but I understand that if the theory of gravity is real, you know, first, like Isaac Newton started talking about gravity and then he was doing it with his force stuff. And then Einstein came along, he said, no, it's a push. And it took me a while to understand it all until I realized, okay, I think I know what they're talking about. So like if you put a bowling ball in the middle of a bed, there, you know, space is an actual thing, and these planets are kind of rolling around this thing, right? But why don't they, you know, just fall into the sun like you do with a quarter when you put a quarter in one of those donation things and it spins around? Well, that's because the sun's pushing stuff out, and there's all these physics and stuff behind it. But the mind makes you think, at least I would like to think, that can't last forever. Something has to get destroyed or leave or something and get reproduced. So maybe, like I've heard this theory before, but Venus is kind of like the next Earth that's coming, and then Earth turns into Mars kind of thing, and it just kind of shifts out. Have you ever heard of that before?
No, that's the first time I've heard that theory.
It would take a long time for that to happen, though. Really long time, I would think.
You know, but see, that's the thing with a cataclysmic event. It's instant, it's sudden. And we've been trained since we were children to believe that geologically everything requires this huge amount of time to process change.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. If you look at, you know, certain scientists that are open-minded, like Dr. Paul LaViolette, you know, Dr. Bruce Cornett, who's a great geologist. Things, and I'm not saying they specifically said, you know, things can happen instantly, but they're open-minded to look at what historical data shows as a possibility that these changes were instant. You know, look at the Younger Dryas period. Something took place there. And it shows in Egypt this change and rise in water levels with the Sphinx. And then you have, you know, things happening in the Americas, things happening in Mesopotamia. So you have these similar events that are being documented by civilizations that are thousands of miles apart that were never supposed to have been in contact with one another. So if that's true, like they're telling us, then the only way for that to be explained is that they all were affected by the same event and documented it the same way.
Interesting. So maybe this stuff, it could just be a cosmic event too. Like, you're right, because I'm thinking about time cycles and how long everything takes, but there could, you know how we have comets and stuff that come through here like every so many thousands of years, and asteroids and stuff. There could actually be like a one cosmic event that changes everything really fast, and it could come from the sun, or it could be an anomaly like the Nibiru thing. I don't know if I believe in that though, but you know what I mean? You're right. I mean, for us to think that, well, the solar system works this way, so everything has to take a super long time, so everything's cool, we're safe. But when you look in the universe, that's not exactly true everywhere else. I mean, we've got, they just got through talking about how they were filming like galaxies or something that just all of a sudden disappeared. They're no longer there. You know, that doesn't make sense.
Right. Oh, right. And look, 20 years ago, who would have even imagined or believed a black hole in the center of the galaxy as the cause for so much? But now that's being pushed as the main, current theory and event of how, galaxy formation, at least for the Milky Way, and all this energy coming from the center of the galaxy. So, like I said, today's science is going to be laughed at, tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find more, I mean, what is your favorite place to go to? Because I've never left the United States, and I've thought about some places to go investigate. I've thought about Egypt, I've thought about Mexico, and I've thought about Scotland. And if you was to advise, be like, hey, there's one place that you should go first, where would you tell somebody to go? Mexico for sure, huh? Yeah, that's where you start.
Mexico for sure. There are most people only think of Maya when they think of Mexico, and the Aztec were too recent. A lot of what they carried were from those past cultures into their culture and their civilization. But you got to remember, there were these other groups like the Olmec that we don't know who they were, and even the word Olmec, the rubber people, came from a later civilization that gave them that name. And then there seems to be this proto-Olmec society that we really are starting to come across artifacts and information, in little bits and pieces and tidbits from them. So if we've lost this group of people that were just 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, why could we have not lost track of other cultures and other civilizations from 10,000 years ago, 19,000 years ago, 37,000 years ago? And in Mexico, you have to think about it from a geological standpoint. You're talking about an area that can, within 100 years, completely cover cities. In bog and in swamp, can completely dissolve almost everything but stone. So we're losing historical data just based upon where it was located in the past.
That's frustrating, isn't it, to think about? Like, there's answers there, man. Like there's real answers there to answer some of our biggest questions, and it's just either buried, gone. It's kind of like the whole story of the Library of Alexandria thing. There's probably some really cool stuff in there too. I think, I think it's interesting, man. Like every now and then, I get guests that, they're really adamant about one subject, but you've investigated a lot of things, and you're also even you write nonfiction. You're writing for children now. I think. Do you feel like that? This isn't just a personal journey for you, is it? Do you feel like that you have to, and I'm just assuming here, that you have to spread a message to kind of warn people a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, that's where I'm going with it, is there's just so much, and every time I try to push a little further, there's always these little minor setbacks, and sometimes I wonder if they're on purpose. Yeah. And I don't want to give up. And I just feel like there's message eventually that I'm hoping will be pushed to the masses instead of just the very few.
And I know exactly what you mean by that. Mine's more of in a radio format, but I know exactly what you mean. We're already at the top of the hour here. I can get to your questions. I already see some of your questions in the chat to Susie G, and I'll ask that right when we come back here with our guest tonight, James Keenan. Our website is lightingthevoid.com. You can go check out all of his books on the author page, amazon.com/James Keenan, or just search James Keenan on Amazon. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hey, this is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a void walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK-DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Root on the Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a void walker.
G'day, void walkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, but Nick Murray's greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Root.
Hey, this is V, coming in from Central Maryland, and I am a void walker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner void walker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I'll guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Root in the show, and heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, a.k.a. the Night Stalker, and I'm a void walker.
This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a void walker. Thanks, Joe Root.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to The Fringe FM.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Have you ever seen an ad or banner which brought you a feeling that someone is reading your mind or even listening to your conversations? Your online data is being used against you. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves stripped bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand 3 truths. FEMA is broke. The system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans civilians can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
Hey Fringe listeners, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio, asking you to join us live Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Fringe FM. Visit beyondthestrange.com for links to chat, social media, and schedules of the show. And remember, always stay strange. Hasta.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Paranormal News, I'm Brad Bernards. Valkenswaard residents in the Netherlands have been hearing loud, ominous trumpet sounds seemingly coming from the sky. The unnerving phenomenon was recorded on the evenings of December 9th and 10th by Roy Van Zaan, whose Facebook posts upload have since generated a great deal of interest and debate. The sounds resemble a sort of low brass trumpet or metallic scraping. However, it is unclear what is producing them or how far away the source might be. While some social media users have likened the sounds to the apocalyptic trumpet calls described in the book of Revelation, others have favored less divine interpretations. One crane operator has suggested that the sounds could be coming from a crane moving in the wind, and it is possible that some other type of industrial machinery could be responsible. As things stand, however, no definitive explanation for the phenomenon has been found. Read the news at paranormalradio.com. I'm Brad Bernards, Abnormal News.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
James Keenan, our guest tonight, investigator, author, researcher. Very interesting stuff, man. Big time stuff to think about here, like our ancient history, what's going on with the poles, electromagnetic thing, the Venus stuff. That's really cool. I'm going to keep looking into that. There's some more questions in the chat about that too. But before we get to that, James, I want to tell you, I don't know why people, like you mentioned earlier, that when you start talking about pole shifts and electromagnetic stuff and frequency, and people don't really want to talk about it. I have no idea why, because it's one of those things that gets measured. I had a really real experience at Board Camp Crystal Mine here in Arkansas, when I went to the top of a quartz crystal mine, and they have had UFOs out there, man, crazy beams of light that happened. I saw just a wildest looking orb out there myself, and was walking around this mine where rocks would levitate, like physically levitate. They have it on video, and my compass would go one way, and then I'd walk back another way and it would go another way. And so, like, I know there's something to it, so I can't think for the life of me why anybody wouldn't want to talk about it. What are your thoughts on this? What's going on with this?
There's certain locations on the planet that have electromagnetic anomalies, and why, I think we're still trying to learn and understand, but I believe that whatever is the cause of it is underground. Is it natural? Maybe some of them are. Are some of them created? Probably. By who? We don't know yet. Maybe we do. Are we having multiple different events take place Absolutely. I think some of these are caused by governments that are secretly creating these events.
Okay.
Also, other beings, other entities, and that could just mean a private company, and then natural occurrences. And these seem to attract the paranormal. And when I'm talking paranormal, I'm going to go ahead and put in there UAP, UFO events as well into that same basket.
Yeah, right. Good for you, man. Good for you, because that stuff should be looked at. I haven't had that many personal UFO experiences. I've had a couple, but I know the one thing that I do know is there's weird places on the planet now, for sure, because I visited them myself. Down here in Arkansas, where they have this Board Camp crystal mine, there will be lights that literally come up. They light up the sky, and it almost looks like light pollution, but it's not. There's no cities or nothing around. There's nothing there to light up the sky. And then you can also see like beams coming down. And then after that event happens, all kinds of weird things start happening out there. Like I said, I mean, they've got video of rocks levitating, things like that. And then other people start talking about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and then that famous conversation comes up about portals. Do you believe that there are actually portals here on the earth, like dimensional portals kind of thing?
I do. I'm 100% convinced. As a matter of fact, my current lecture that I've been giving is a good portion of it is on portals. And you have to understand that, whatever a portal is, the ability for it to be produced, we already understand. We understand about, frequency affecting wavelength, ionized radiation, which is, plasma events, having enough power and energy for a focal point to be opened. And when you're talking about interdimensional, are we talking about things that we just don't see, like a different light spectrum? Is our polarity disturbed and we don't see or understand it yet? You're talking about different electricity being intermingled with magnetism. And all this energy creates these weird anomalies out in space that we're learning and studying in astrophysics and in astronomy. So why can it not happen at a smaller level? These events take place within a planet that open up, an interdimensional portal, or a portal that's a latitudinal transfer portal between latitudes on the planet, like at a 40-degree latitude. And the ability for what it can do, there's obviously multiple possibilities. And so maybe when we think of a portal, we have to think of there being multiple events taking place that we label as portal, that really are 3 or 4 different events that we're still trying to comprehend and understand the physics behind.
Do you think it could be like the frequency thing too, like Claude Swanson talks about? We had him on the show, and it was really interesting because he wrote some books about this field that you see in nature. And I forget what he called it too, because it's on the tip of my tongue right now, but it shapes out, and it looks like it goes out of like if you looked at the human body, it would come out the head and go up top, and it's kind of in the shape of an apple and then goes through the feet. And, people talk about grounding, meditating, that kind of thing, but you also see it in nature. You see it in trees, and you see it in planets. You see it in the universe. You see it everywhere. And he said these fields permeate reality through frequencies, and all you have to do is change that frequency. And he didn't kind of explain it like a portal, but he said it was more like changing a radio station where you can kind of merge with that reality. Does that make sense?
It does. And think about this. NASA just recently came out and said there are portal events taking place between the sun and the earth. They said it's an actual physical occurrence. It happens at what's called an X point, and they've put up satellites. I think it was back in 2013 or 16, these 4 satellites that are capturing actual portals opening up. And we're talking about a portal that starts in the sun, comes all the way towards Earth, and comes in contact with the magnetosphere, and these X points that look like these huge X's form, and all this energy from the sun suddenly comes out of nowhere. And this is an actual physical portal that's being studied by NASA, by our government. So for that to happen and to be talked about, I mean, you can go to the NASA website, you can watch videos on it. So for people to not believe that it's not happening here on our planet, I don't understand. I don't see how somebody could believe because NASA scientists said, oh, that's a portal, but someone else said, hey, I saw a portal or I captured it, that it's not just as believable, because these events are using the same physics, just we don't understand what that physics is quite yet.
Exactly. Right. I totally believe that too. Science, I was talking to you about during the break why I bring up Rogan, why I get frustrated a lot, because we think we know a lot, right? We do. The scientists really do, and they do, man. I mean, let's give them credit. They know a lot more than we used to comparatively or relatively, but it still could just be the least of things, right? They could just be explaining the least of things. They have to consider that. And they definitely have to consider studies in consciousness and metaphysics, because no matter how many particles they smash or what they do, they're going to keep doing this until they go back to the double slit experiment and go, okay, all right, there's something else going on here. We're going to have to consider metaphysics. I think we're kind of coming back full circle. At least I hope we are.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you 100%. That's exactly what's happening and is going to happen.
So, I hope you're right, man. And I hope we do it before this event happens. I hope there's not an event. But if there is, we can't rule it out. We just can't rule those kinds of things out. People don't want to talk about it. They don't want to think about catastrophic events. But some of the smartest people in the world have written about these things. Robert Schoch wrote about it. He writes about solar anomalies in the latest book, Forgotten History. I think that's the name of it. I read that book, and he's, a geologist, a smart guy. Randall Carlson, same thing, and you're talking about this from what you've studied too. So we have to consider it. We have to put it in our head and say, this is a possibility. I mean, one of the reasons why an asteroid just doesn't wipe us out is because Jupiter's out there protecting us. You know how many things, asteroids and meteorites, that thing gobbles up? All it would take is just one to go by it, So sometimes I feel like we're lucky, but then again, is that what's really going on? It's kind of a trip to think about it, because if we're lucky, how did we last this long, without a catastrophic event? That's the stuff I think about a lot.
Sure. Absolutely. And think about this too. I mean, look at the underworld. Look at places like Derinkuyu in Turkey. Look at the cairns that are deep below in the islands of Ireland and the United Kingdom. And think about this. Why were so many people living underground, and how did these become so large? Well, the answer is because they were living underground for an extended period of time. And why is that? Well, obviously something took place on the surface of the planet that caused them to be forced to be underground. Then we have these oral traditions, these oral stories, these folklore, this mythology of the underworld. Well, think about what the underworld really represents. Something so devastating took place to humanity that people were pushed into the bowels, the depths of Mother Earth, and it became what's known as hell. And we then think of fire and brimstone. Well, guess what? What if the fire and brimstone physically took place? Look at the Popol Vuh, when this hot pitch and this fire rained down on the whole world, which would have been Mesoamerica, and suddenly everybody was wiped out. The fact of the matter is that more than likely 99% of the population of Homo sapiens sapien was wiped out at certain times, and less than 1% of the population survived. And then when you think about it, more than likely those people weren't the physicists of the time. They weren't the medical doctors. They could have been the janitor at a school. You know, who was Adam? Adam could have been a janitor and just happened to survive. And, and then suddenly we talk about this escape or this freedom from the underworld. Well, all of that had to have come from somewhere. And when so many different people all around the world have the same type of mythology and folklore, people have to open up their minds to think, how is that possible?
Yeah, that's true. It is. And I think, you know what it is? I think it's because people too, they sometimes stuff like that makes them a little afraid, and they don't want to keep digging and looking at it. You know, it's cool to talk about things like portals, UFOs, and aliens, but catastrophic events or underground societies or underground humanities or whatever you want to call it, like that can be a very real thing, man. I mean, there's this guy, this Gnostic guy named Samael Aun-Weor. Now I know some people know who he is. Completely whacked out dude that writes about all of what the stars really are and how they're portals to different dimensions, and how you can do certain rituals and meditations so you can go through certain star systems. But then he also talks about how all of these planets that we have in our solar system, we think that don't have life on them. Actually, a lot of them do, but they're just deep, buried underground, and we don't see them. And some other planets have life forms that don't represent physical, like anything like us. And so we think there's no life there, but we just need to change our definition of life. And it really kind of opened my mind. And if you think about it, all of like the biggest thinkers that in our past, even Einstein himself was like, man, the universe, this is spooky. This is too spooky for me. It actually freaked him out, So why are we discounting all this stuff? Is it just for power, you think, to control a narrative? Is that what you think's going on?
I think that's a huge part of it. And I think you also hit upon the fact that, what humans aren't in control of scares the heck out of them. And at some point, people probably say, well, if I can't control it, it's better just to kind of, stick your head in the sand and forget it exists.
Yeah, that's true. But I think we could use technology. I swear I was thinking about this stuff last year, and I was like, watch, they're going to start talking about asteroids, and then they're going to start, making, and I was just joking around, man. I was like, they're going to make weapons to take out asteroids, and then we're going to have like a space force, and there's going to be a space race. And I never even brought up that we joked about those things back in the day, and now it's all coming true. I can't help but feel like that there's somebody knows something we don't. And I'm not saying it's Donald Trump, right? But there's something going on all the time behind the scenes that we're not aware of. And there's a lot of stuff that's being controlled. You were talking to me earlier during the break about the school systems and how they set up our education system. And it's kind of obvious to me that there are so many talented children. I don't know if I believe in this indigo child thing, but I do know that there are a lot of intelligent kids with gifts and stuff now like no other. And they're all just kind of buried under this system, that doesn't really do anything for them. It doesn't really help them grow creatively or anything, We need to figure out how to become an advanced society. I think that's what I'm rambling about.
No, I'm in total agreement. I think we continue to process information, and we continue to educate and, have a focus that's so old and antiquated, outdated. And the fact of the matter is I think it continues, or it flows upward to command and control. And, at some point, if you allow all that free thinking, it's going to affect those people that have command and control. And I don't see us getting away from that anytime, in the near future. So I think maybe what we need to do is work on understanding and focusing on the things that hopefully we can affect at each individual level, and then maybe pull that into some type of collective, in whatever way that we're able to carry that momentum. Hopefully that'll be the first step into breaking future barriers, whether it be in science or, maybe reigniting philosophy, so that free thinking can hopefully have this outward momentum into physical sciences at some point in time. And hopefully it starts in the education system, or at least at a much younger age with our children.
Right. So where do you feel like your next big investigation is going to be after this? Where do you want to go now?
I'm heading up to the Uinta Basin the first week of April. We were talking about certain locations on this planet that just have anomalous events taking place. And the Uinta Basin in northeast Utah is one of those places where there's not just one event happening, but multiple events. And you can label those events, some of them paranormal, others man-made, and those man-made are being hidden or pushed into people thinking that they're paranormal or UFO involved. So there's just so much going on there, and I'm just fascinated with the location. And there's so much that I still have to research and investigate, and it just keeps drawing me and pulling me there.
Well, I can tell you I'm grateful you're doing it, and I'm going to keep more tabs on what you're doing too now because of it, because I'm super interested in this. And it's not, I know what people are thinking, I'm not chasing a fear. I'm just chasing the truth. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So in the Fringe FM chat, where you guys can go check that out too, the fringe.fm/chat room, you can join our Discord server and hang out with all of us in there. Susie G is asking, do they have any dates on the catastrophes that you're talking about specifically? Is there a date or a time, a date around the Venus stuff that you found out about? Or is it just kind of broad?
So my book is labeled October 22nd, 2036 for a reason.
There you go.
And then like what I told you earlier, the way that the calendars are done, it's difficult to really grasp what the start dates truly were in Mesoamerica. And, the scientists are going to, and remember, these are social scientists, so their opinion is subjective, and people just hear scientists and they think it's factual, and it's not. But they think they've got it right, and I really strongly feel like it's incorrect. But it could be 2236. So there's this 200-year difference, which obviously makes a huge difference to those of us that are living now.
Well, I think it's incredibly brave, even, even in a quote, fiction book, to put that out there. I think it's smart, though, too, because you get people thinking and looking at it. And to me, it's like a stock trade almost. It's better to be more broad and accurate and get prepared than be like, well, that's not the exact date. And then you just throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. We really need to, you remember like Graham Hancock talked about this stuff too. He's like, we really need to start paying attention to these catastrophic events that all of these researchers are starting to find. Well, they're labeled alternative researchers, but their stuff is good, man. The stuff they're finding is factual. And it really hits home when you talk about, okay, when I go look at these signs or these petroglyphs or signs and it says when they see a goat, they draw a picture of a goat. Everything is what it is, but the second there's I don't know, something that looks like a UFO or something that looks alien, they automatically think that, well, they were tripping or they were taking mushrooms or something like that. I mean, that's just as crazy as what they're trying to accuse us of. You know what I mean? To think that it's kind of irrational.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, people always say, I always tell people I'm not an archaeologist. I have my degree in anthropology and archaeology, but I would label more of that fringe just to make sure people are aware of that. But it doesn't mean that my research and my investigation is not the same way as those people that have a PhD do. I try to follow the same thing. I just try to keep an open mind to other possibilities. And anybody that says they're not biased is lying. Of course, I'm biased as to my my belief system. I wrote it in fictional books to push my belief system, and I let people know that. I don't lie about it, but it doesn't mean that it's not quality information. When I'm out in the field, I take a lot of technical equipment out with me. I recently got a proton magnetometer,
nice.
Based upon what Dr. Cornett, he used this up in, upstate New York, and to capture this massive anomalous electromagnetic anomaly underground. And I think that what he captured there has potential to be similar on the Uinta Basin. So I try to get the same equipment and try to understand it, learn about it, how to use it properly, because I also want to capture data points that I can present to people. I think people, when they hear about things like Skinwalker Ranch, are sick and tired of hearing the same stuff regurgitated for the last 60 years. I've heard it. I know about it. I don't care anymore. I want to know what's happening and how I can affect it, or how I can piggyback onto that event and get answers for it. And that's where I'm currently going with my research and investigation, as I want to take it to the next step, and I want to start interacting with these events that are happening, and I want to start piggybacking onto the energy that's there and see what happens. And I know people say, well, you're messing with things that you shouldn't be. But if we don't mess with it, or we don't do anything, what are we going to gain? We're not going to gain any new understanding. So, I mean, at some point, somebody has to, push to the next level and do more than just gather information. They got to start trying to, basically do a scientific experiment with what's available.
Yeah. You got to take some risks, and honestly, again, I mean, those are people that are afraid, man. They're probably saying that, just because they're afraid, and that's usually what people do when they don't want to find out something that messes with their paradigm. They don't want to know anything different. We're already at the bottom of this hour, so we got to take another break. Look, if you like the show and you like the program, this show runs on donations, okay? The sponsors are for the network, but we survive here on donations and listener support. So if you please can donate, do so. You go to lightingthevoid.com, scroll down to where it says donate, and hit that button. We'll be right back with James Keenan.
This is Rev Dan Lopez from Spiritual Warrior Today Radio, and you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Get the Tea is the #1 cleansing tea in America. We cleanse you with organic ingredients, and when used daily, you can increase your energy. Cleanse from intruders that set up camp in your colon. Cleanse your colon and feel the difference. Colon cleanses can be uncomfortable. Not Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea is mild yet truly effective. Cleanse your insides every day. Easy to make, easy to use, and feel the results. Here's how to order. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Look for our specials on the front page. Get the Tea also carries top-rated supplements for those who care about their health naturally. Again, log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com and feel the results. And for those of you that arm yourself with information, come to our webinar every other Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. That's every...
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hi, this is David Oman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KTLK, the Fringe FM.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Hi, this is Kronox from Belgium, and you're listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Alex Exum.
This is Alex Exum of the Exum Experience in Live Talk, where we discuss current events, society, and culture. My shows are based in actuality, actual existence, contrasted with what was intended, expected, or believed. You can listen to me live Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 7 p.m. only on KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
This is Reverend John M. Polk, and you are listening to KTLK Digital Broadcasting right here on the Fringe.fm.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. Tomorrow night on Lighting the Void, the same time, same channel, the Fringe FM. Jeff Harmon's going to be here with us. We'll also open up the lines to take your calls. It's been a minute since he's been on. He's not just an astrologer, but he's also a spiritual advisor. He gets into a lot of things. We're going to talk about magic squares, the esoteric, what's going on, 4-area astrology, Kabbalistic astrology, all of that good stuff. So you'll want to check that out tonight our guest is James Keenan, author, investigator, and researcher, and also speaker too. You got some speaking events coming up, right?
I sure do. Yes.
Where all
I'm
those?
going to be.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to be speaking to UPPAR's Los Angeles, which is the UFO and Paranormal Research Society, on March 17th. And then on March the 18th, I will be lecturing on the Uinta Basin portals and Skinwalker Ranch to MUFON, Orange County. And then I will be giving the same lecture on March the 20th here in Arizona to Sedona MUFON.
Nice. All right. And so, yeah, what are you going to be presenting on mainly?
So it's the lecture is the Uinta Basin portals and Skinwalker Ranch, and what it is like I kind of went over just real quickly. When we talk about the Uinta Basin, most people don't even know what that is or where it's at until they realize, or somebody says Skinwalker Ranch. And, Skinwalker Ranch is on the Uinta Basin. It's one of the most, it used to be called, the UFO Ranch before it was dubbed Skinwalker Ranch. And a lot of paranormal activity and other events take place there. And over the last 70 years, it seems like all the same information has just constantly been regurgitated, and very few people understand that this anomaly actually affects a much greater area of the Uinta Basin, and that there are other places where these events are happening, like Blind Frog Ranch up in La Pointe, Utah, on the Ute Reservation. Same things are taking place, and that these events actually went back thousands of years and are recorded in the historical data, which are the petroglyphs. And there are many of them with the anomalies and events that are current, already captured 1,000 or 2,000 years ago by the Fremont culture or by the Barrier Canyon culture or these other unknown cultures. So my lecture goes over what I've captured, and then I present that, and I obviously have a subjective, viewpoint as to what I believe it represents and where it originates from, and then future possibilities and opportunities to hopefully find out more about what's going on, because there are multiple events happening. It's not just one thing taking place.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So, there's some of these places, I got to be honest with you, I never even heard of. So there's not only multiple events, there's multiple there's multiple locations of stuff. And I believe that too. It's like there's a event they have here in Arkansas that they don't even Graham Hancock comes to it. I just found out about it a couple of years ago too. And it's on a crystal mine here. They don't really advertise it. You don't see it on any ads or any broadcasts or anything like that. Matter of fact, they don't even let any media come because it's such a sacred thing and sacred event. And it's like, all right, how many places like that are there all over just the United States or North America alone? I mean, what are your thoughts on North America, like the history of North America? Because I've heard all kinds of things. Atlantis, we've talked about the ancient rock wall under Texas, the giants thing. I've heard a lot of different things here, but the history here is probably one of the strangest things. I don't think we'll ever understand. I hope we do, but I just don't think we ever will. And it kind of frustrates me,
No, I agree with you. You know what? And like I try to explain, there's a lot of lost cultures and civilizations that have been forgotten. For what reasons? There's multiple reasons as to why they've been forgotten or lost. But North America and Central and South America have history to, the point where there's a good chance that where everything started that we can go back to may not have been from, the Mesopotamian area. It could have easily have been from South America. There seems to be more and more information that's pointing towards that. And then here in North America, we have so many cultures and civilizations that we really don't know who the heck they are. We label them just upon artifacts that we find at a location and give them that name, but where they originated from, we have no idea. And when we think of the indigenous people, the Native Americans say they're children of the star people. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to them, I was with Clifford Mahooty just the other day for the entire day. And, people go, oh, they don't really mean that. No, they really do. Their culture to them, that's just a normal standard belief. And why we continue to try to force them to think otherwise, I don't get it. Or to keep that information from becoming just normal public information. There's obviously reasons for it, but little by little it's getting out.
Yeah, they're not good and honest reasons, though. I mean, let's be frank here. That whole thing that happened at Standing Rock ought to show us something. If we like how things really are, how messed up things really are. When we first came to this land, all we know is, there's people here and we're going to call them Indians, right? And they're, quote, savages. Really? Like they're savages because they've learned how to live off the land. They've learned how to be healthy and survive because they're spiritual, because they didn't wear wigs or whatever, we had no idea. We assumed so much when we first came here, right? And we didn't learn as much as we could. And every time that they would give us like a myth or something like that, or a story, we would write it down as myth. But it is kind of funny, like even when you talk to them today, because we have reservations here too, and they don't treat it as a myth. They don't treat it as like mythology or, just a story that they tell their kids to learn a lesson. Like it's history to them,
Correct. It's absolutely factual to them. And, just the fact that, think about just these details, like you were saying. Look at Chichen Itza. I mean, it has an observatory that rivals what we have today. So how is it that they had that 1,000 years ago? How is that savage, or how is that lacking in technology? They were capable of, knowing that there were planets all the way out to, Uranus and Neptune,
Right.
How is that, So tell me how that's below, the standards that we brought over. I don't get it either, but at least slowly we're getting the truth out there, and people are coming to see that there was a lot of advanced technology here that's just been lost or forgotten about, that was far better than what Western culture had.
Yeah, I believe it's kind of like, you seen that movie, The Last Samurai? It's kind of like that. I think it's more like how do you view technology? Like this guy, he leaves, he's fighting in a war. I'm not, saying there's anything wrong with the white race or anything like that, but they go to this land and learn how to fight. It was based on a true story, trying to teach the samurai and the Japanese on how to fire guns and stuff, and look at them as primitive. And then he gets captured, taken to this place, and it's like they consider him dirty and filthy, unspiritual, without honor. I'm like, it's like two different worlds. And so technology is really kind of the way I view it is how we define it. I mean, is technology to you like picking up a phone and making a call, or is it like being able to meditate and project yourself, like you say, to somewhere else in the universe? Which one's going to help you more? Think about it. I don't know. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Exactly.
So are you going to continue to keep writing nonfiction this way, like the way you're doing now, children's books like the UFO and Alien? Do you find that it's more fulfilling to you to do this than to try to get everybody to pay attention to the same stuff that we are all trying to get people to pay attention to?
Well, so I'm working on 2 books. Like I told you, I'm working on my first non-fictional book, which is going to encompass all the research and investigations, because I kind of want to separate fact from fiction.
Right.
And then I'm going to continue making children's books fictionally, because I love being able to present new ideas. Like the UFO and an alien was to present ufology, the subject matter, how it's spoken about, but also to put it to a story where the kids enjoy it, and that they can get AR or reading credit in school. And so I'm going to continue to put out children's fictional books. I like to go with that 4th, 5th, 6th grade elementary level, because I think that's where the sweet spot is for offering an opportunity to see different philosophical viewpoints and look at the world a little differently than how we're forcing them to look at it in school.
I'm glad you're doing that too, because I wish you would have came around when I was in school. When I was in school in 5th and 6th grade, if you'd have brought the UFO and the alien, I don't think they would have let us read it. But I'm glad to hear that some people are. But I grew up in a kind of podunk hick town, where everybody believed the same stuff and nobody could challenge anything. So that's really cool to hear. Now, there is one other question I wanted to ask in the chat that it's a pretty decent question, because we've talked about Venus, we talked about, magnetic fields and the Earth and all this stuff, but we really haven't brought up the moon. Have you done any research into the moon? I'm not talking about like some of the stuff that's on the surface of the moon, but as far as any ancient history or any glyphs that you found that discuss what it is, because the moon is just, if not the most curious anomaly that we have in the sky. There's just too many weird things about it. Have you looked into that at all?
And that's just one topic I haven't really pushed into. And I know there's a lot of good information out there. I think Mike Barra has put out a really good book on what you see that's anomalous there and events that have taken place. In regards to what, I have 4 catastrophic events or anomalies that I focus in on, and that's the solar outburst, the planet Venus, this central blue star that was seen in Native American culture that was more than likely a galaxy-type explosion where like this cosmic dust wreaked havoc with Earth, and then a nuclear-type explosion that took place in our outer core when the inner core leaked outward. So that's my focus, are those 4 events. And then, I dive into so many other things. Like currently I jumped into also looking at these alien artifacts that are coming out of certain locations in Mexico. So I have my hands tied and jumping into the moon, and that there's a lot out there and it's good information. So I've just kind of left that alone for now.
I had to ask just because I'm curious about it, because that's what I'm into, is like trying to figure out what the hell that thing is, but I'm also interested in what you're talking about too. I'm interested in all of it, man. Let's be honest. That's why I'm doing a radio show 5 nights a week, but there's just so much mystery out there that I don't know. Like, I really believe, James, that and maybe you might disagree with me, but I believe until we really understand what consciousness is, I don't think we're going to get close to these answers. But then again, we have people like you and then archaeologists and other people that go out that might actually stumble upon something like a lost artifact or a scroll or something that might actually start answering things for us. I mean, that's kind of what it's all about. So I don't discount it either, but I just feel like we need to look into consciousness exploration more, not just this understanding of consciousness or the existential ideas of it, but really like explore it and try to figure out what's going on, with it. And maybe I think that'll start putting things together. I believe that.
Yeah, no, and a lot of stuff overlaps. But I always tell people that, when you go and search for physical evidence, maybe somebody else captured on that physical evidence, things of that nature, that metaphysical, or events that you're talking about that tie in, and group everything together. And you know what? More than likely, it all, like you said, it all comes together at some point, and understanding the basics and the lowest level may actually be the highest level, and we just can't quite comprehend that yet.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. You know what I did want to ask you too, and get it. I probably should ask you at the beginning of the show, but you yourself, other than the near-death experience that you had when you were young and some of the dream stuff that's happened, have you had any other type of strange paranormal activity that's happened in your life, like that was pretty big like that?
Yes. So I've had a run-in with, I guess, what people would label as a shadow figure.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why I'm so fascinated by portals is this shadow figure seemed to come out of what I guess we would label as a portal. And I think I discussed it and described it earlier that I believe there are multiple portals, multiple types of portals. And labeling it, everything as just a portal doesn't quite make sense, because I think there's events that we don't understand that are separate and not, they're distinctive of one another. So, yeah, absolutely. I've had several other experiences in my life, and that's obviously the reason why I'm open to this type of thinking. And I like to present both sides. I like to delve into scientific data points that I can capture that allow, the science community to look at and go, okay, well, this is that. And then, from the metaphysical part or the paranormal, I'm a firm believer, and I always tell people, yeah, I'm biased, but it doesn't mean I can't properly present both sides. I think there's always both sides to every story, and it goes along with, the things that are happening in the world. There's things we understand and things that we don't understand, and are the two, do they coexist together? Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you're trying to do, yeah, thank you for saying that, because I think they do too. But you know what? It's cool that you're going to get, what did you call that thing? Proton magnetometer? Is that what it's called?
Proton magnetometer, yes.
Magnetometer, right. Yeah. So do you really think and I know that you're probably going to catch all kinds of stuff with this thing, man, but do you really believe that you, when you present this information, or do you hope that it'll make it into mainstream science, or are you just wanting to show people the information and say, look, pay attention, like this is going on? Because I think, I'd hate to see you go out there and invest this stuff, do all this work, and it really depends on what you want. But for me, it's like, okay, now we got a guy that's going to get some real instruments. He's going to go out there, he's going to capture this stuff, then he's going to come back, and I just want, I don't know why so bad, but I just want mainstream science to actually say, okay, we'll look into it. You know what I mean? Not discounting that people like Dean Radin, not discounting the Monroe Institute or any of these other people, but mainstream science is not looking into this at all, not the way they should be. And so I'm hoping, man, maybe you might be one of the guys that actually triggers that. That would be cool.
I would love to, but, everything has to be repeatable. And, just because I present something, it's not going to get mainstream unless I'm able to take people out there and we're able to repeat the data. So, obviously that first step is to hopefully capture something anomalous and be able to present it with scientific data points along with, video, photos, interviews, but to actually have scientific data points would just be the creme de la creme. And then to, at that point, be able to maybe get other people out there and try to repeat the data. Then we would start being able to see a scientific process be built and hopefully, get other people involved. What's great at Skinwalker Ranch now is we actually have a real scientist present on the land, and they're using real scientific equipment. And there's more to it than what was happening when Bigelow was there. And we're going in the right direction as to capturing that data. And I think that at some point, hopefully we'll start experimenting with the anomalous events and seeing, what unfolds at that point.
Yeah, I hope that's what happens too, because a proton magnometer, also known as the Proton Precision Magnometer, or PPM, uses the principle of the Earth's field's nuclear magnetic resonance to measure very small variation in the Earth's magnetic field, allowing ferrous objects on land and at sea to be detected. Oh, wow. So it works everywhere. Water, land, doesn't matter. It says, okay, operates in the principle that protons in all atoms are spinning on an axis aligned with the magnetic field. The frequency at which the protons precess is directly proportional to the strength of the Earth's magnetic field. I mean, that ought to be proof enough, man. I hope it would be. I hope you capture all kinds of stuff with that. That would be really cool to see. And then say, okay, now you can't deny it. Like, what is this? And as long as you don't use what they're going to say, oh, what are you saying? It's a portal? Well, I'm not saying it's a portal per se, but you tell me what it is. Explain it and see if they can do it. That ought to be pretty interesting, man.
Exactly. And what's also good about it is it shows me the locations where we can do further research. And by that, I mean, hopefully interact with what's happening there and maybe piggyback onto the energy that's being used.
Well, you definitely, I can tell you this, as far as energy goes, you definitely have given me more energy and looking into this stuff. And I really appreciate you coming on the show, James. It's been a pleasure having you on here, and I want to keep following up with you and see how things are going. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thanks, Joe. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I appreciate yours. And you guys, I will drop all the links, especially to his books and stuff, in the chat. More Lighting the Void coming up. We'll be right back. Stay with us.